Tech Talks. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of Philly Tech, and your host for Tech Talks. Tech Talks is a show specifically for entrepreneurs, tech startups, software companies, and all of these people in the ecosystem that want to learn and be successful. So my show is every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. right here in beautiful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So just a quick intro on my background. So I run Philly Tech. Philly Tech is 100% focused in software companies and tech startups, and we help them in three core areas: sales, engineering, and recruiting. So I am so excited today, guys, because I actually met Marc this weekend after I went to the diner. I met Marc. I went to the dog park, I saw Marc there, but I've known Marc for many, many years in our ecosystem. I've known him to be an entrepreneurial expert and in the angel community. And as I was learning more about him, what the three areas that he's focused on: he's a serial entrepreneur, he's a family business expert, and a funding expert. So I wanted to introduce my audience to Marc Kramer. So Marc, great to see you. We'll go fist pump. We'll go fist pump. Yeah, elbow pump. Yeah. So excited to have Marc here. Marc was one of those people in our ecosystem, and I was always like, what is Marc doing, right? What does he do? So I started talking to him a little bit this weekend, and I said, yeah, come on my show, right? So he's on my show. So Marc, tell the audience a little bit about your background. Like, are you from the area? You know, your background. Before you started everything, what did you do before you started your business?
So I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a town called Coatesville. It's a steel town. I originally started out as a sports writer. I thought I would make my career as a sports writer.
Awesome.
My grandfather was a business owner. My father was a business owner. And the last thing I ever wanted to do was be in business. My goal was to be a writer for Sports Illustrated. Wrote 5 years as a sports writer. Nice. And then I met my wife and realized I couldn't afford the life she wanted to be accustomed to.
Right.
And preferred to have a family and be with kids than to be a sports writer. So I left sports writing world, but I'd always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I had always started some side venture to make side money. And the writing skills that I developed as a journalist have helped me my entire career, because I've written for a lot of publications.
Yeah.
I've been on radio. I was 15 years on KYW. Radio in Philadelphia. I ran a national column for American City Business Journals. I've written 6 books. I'm working on the 7th book. So all those things came into play. And I think it's just in the genes, because my oldest daughter, she has a global marketing practice, and she said to me, I will never be an entrepreneur because of all the time that you have to spend, because I typically work a 6-day week. Some days, unfortunately, it's 7 days, but usually 6 days, and like 12 to 14 hours a day. But I love what I do, so it's not a problem. And now she's one as well.
So Marc, again, everybody in my audience, you got to connect with Marc. So Marc has his own show that he's going to tell you about. He has his own podcast that he does. We're trying to recruit him over here. No. But he has his own podcast. He's an expert in angel funding, in angel investment, which a lot of people need funding, and family businesses as well. So tell the audience, Marc, you're involved in a lot of different things, right? You have tell people where your podcast is so they could find that. But what are you doing there? What are your businesses? What are you focused on?
So I have a few different businesses. I started with Kramer Communications, where I develop and implement business sales, operating, and marketing plans. Mm-hmm. From that, I've expanded to, I have a business called Stress Free Family Business, where I help the kids get ready to take over for the parents in their business. Right. So one generation to the next. And most of the work in the family business that I do is basically keeping family members from killing each other.
Right.
And it's hard to work with family members, because you all know the worst parts about each other. You all know what buttons to push. Yeah. And so surprisingly, most of the fighting in the business goes with businesses that are highly successful. Right. So if the business isn't, they seem to be able to pull it together. But when the business is highly successful, everybody is jockeying for the power position.
Right.
So that makes it difficult. Then I also am the executive director of the Private Investors Forum, which runs the Angel Venture Fair, which is the largest gathering of angel investors and entrepreneurs in the Mid-Atlantic region. And we actually have companies from 20 to 30 countries, 20 to 30 states that apply every year. And we've been doing this 22 years. I started the original group in 1990 called the Pennsylvania Private Investors Group. I'd started the country's first formally organized investor angel network. And now, after I had left about 10 years later, they started this Angel Venture Fair, and now I've been running it the last 11 years.
Nice.
Yeah, so, and we cater to and work with companies from about 15 different industries. The only thing we don't really bring entrepreneurs in to raise money is real estate investments and retail. Those are the two things that are very hard to go and sell.
Yeah.
So I have family business, a marketing consultancy, work with angel investors and entrepreneurs, and I have a business called Pitch to Me First, where entrepreneurs send me their PowerPoint presentations, and I give them feedback on their presentations and their business plans. And if they don't have them, then I write the plans and help them present to angel investors.
Yeah, so everybody, again, just to recap, I mean, you want to connect with Marc. I mean, one of the things that I found when I've been working in the Philly tech community for like about 20 years now, is there's these experts in the region, right? Marc had said Mid-Atlantic, right? Angel fairs, right? All this stuff. So you definitely want to connect with Marc in terms of getting funding, right? Or getting ideas on how to get funding. And then obviously he works with some family businesses. And, you know, I'd said to him the other day when we were talking, I'm like, I'm sure these family businesses have money, right? He's like, yeah, these family businesses have money. So, you know, all this is kind of pulled together for you to be successful. So kind of dive in, I'd love to understand more about, I think my audience would like to know about the Angel Fair, right? How that works. So because how to get funding, it's always something in the Philadelphia region, as you know, it's like impossible to get funding. And I'm like, you're not doing it the right way, right? You don't know how to do it. So tell the audience a little bit more about how that works and the process there.
So the process is that you go and apply online. We use the GUS system. It's a system to collect information. Yep. And we have 89 judges, mostly angel investors, that take a look at these submissions. And we usually get 150 to 200 companies a year that apply. Right. So we have 24 non-student spots. And the companies pay to apply, and then if they're selected, they also pay to be a presenter at the Angel Venture Fair, which occurs at the Union League every year. Nice. And there are 10 university companies. The university students do not apply. They don't pay to apply, and they don't pay to present. Right. So it's totally free to them. And so the whole idea is we want to match these entrepreneurs with investors, and the investors don't have to come from Philadelphia. We're the only angel conference that markets the entrepreneurs to all the angel groups in the United States. So even if you're not selected as one of the 24 or 34 companies, you are still marketed out to all those other angel groups. Yeah. And every time I've put them out, we have a national newsletter that goes out to 10,000 people. A good chunk of them are either angel investors, venture capitalists, or referral sources that can get them into the right people. We always get 3 or 4 people who ask us to meet certain companies, and even ones that didn't make the cut with us. Yeah. We've had companies that didn't make the cut with us and were named Best Southwest by Southwest Entrepreneur or Best Company. Yeah. So it all depends, and we try to get a cross-section of companies. I mean, we have people who have developed, we've had a couple companies who've been on Shark Tank and have raised money through Shark Tank. Nice. We had 2 women who created an underarm deodorant called Piperway. I've heard that. Yeah, and was successful, and the women just sold that company in the past year. So they did quite well. And so the companies are, they could be spirits companies, software companies, cybersecurity, technology companies, e-commerce ventures, again, anything we're open to. And I would say most of the entrepreneurs that we look at are 50 years or older. I mean, I think most people look at Silicon Valley and think most of the entrepreneurs are under the age of 30, but frankly, you need a certain amount of experience. You need, especially on the East Coast, to raise a certain amount of money from your own finances to put into a venture, and then be able to start. I mean, I've started 3 different ventures where I raised outside capital. I started a company called Prompt Payment. The concept was reverse factoring, and I raised $3.2 billion for that venture.
Nice.
And then I started an insurance venture where I created the first insurance product to insure small business bank accounts against cyber theft. And when you're looking for investors, you want to find an investor who understands your business and can provide more than money. You want an investor who can actually open doors for you, give you good strategic advice. So the 2 ventures I mentioned, I was backed by a financial services company, and the other one I was backed by an insurance company. I had non-insurance and non-financial service people wanting to invest, but it wouldn't have been the best thing for me. And now I've got a new venture called Funding Organizer, and what we do is it's a common app for getting funding from banks, savings loan, credit union, factoring services, which has always been a problem, because when you try to get money from these groups, you talk to a bank, they send you a PDF form, and then they send you a deluge of emails over weeks. It could take weeks and months to get all the information. But here, we've created a common app that we have to launch next month that allows you to fill in all the information in an hour. It kind of works like a TurboTax.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, everyone. I've said this so many times on my show, getting funding is a sales process, right? Mark said it before. The most important thing when you're getting funding is you have to identify the funding people, the angels, the groups, the people that are in your sweet spot in what you do, right? That's so important, and so many people don't do that. But what I'd like to understand, Mark, is what do you think, in terms of getting funding, what do you think are the keys? Like, if somebody wants to get funding in the Philly market or anywhere, what do you feel are the keys? Right.
So, look, if you're solving a problem that needs solving, it's not a nice to have, but it's a must have.
Right.
And you have a good team that you've put together who understands that particular market, and it doesn't have to be you. Like, none of the ventures I've ever been in, I came up with the idea, but I was never an expert. And then I would find a partner to bring in with me who was an expert in that area. And that was what allowed me to go and raise the money for any of these ventures. So you want to find a problem. You want to have a solution that's easily explainable. I always said, if I can't explain this to my mom's Mahjong group, and they don't understand what I'm doing, then I've got to go back and think about, is this the right venture, or am I not explaining it well? And then you have to go and you have to go out and see if you can pre-sell your idea. So that way, when investors take a look at it, they say, okay, well, who would buy this thing? And so they're going to want to talk to potential investors. And in some cases, the investor doesn't have to, the client doesn't have to sign already, but they have to say, here's an email or a letter that if you build this, I'm very interested in buying this. And so that's good. And in the East Coast, they expect you to put up a certain amount of money yourself. And the West Coast, it's different. In the West Coast, they just say, you bring the idea, we bring the money. Hence why there's more successes out in the West than there is in the East. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to know, is anybody really willing to buy this thing that you're trying to sell? And they want to see that you have well thought out financials. When I do financials, they're very granular, lots and lots of detail. It's not saying 10% of sales is marketing. It's saying specifically, how am I going to market this? When they go and see sales, they want to see a funnel. How many people could potentially buy this? What tactics are you using to sell it to them? And how many will respond to those tactics as you keep drilling down further and further, and then what percentage do you think are actually going to go and buy?
So Mark, again, is a wealth of knowledge here. So come on back in a few minutes. We're going to talk more about angel investing, Mark's app that he mentioned, what he's doing with family businesses, and the value that he provides. So come on back to Tech Talks in a few minutes. Thanks.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech Talks. My name is Michael Bertoni, and again, I'm the founder and CEO of Philly Tech and your host for Tech Talks. So I'm so excited. I mean, as I'm getting to know Marc more, I mean, this guy is a wealth of knowledge, everyone. I mean, a wealth of knowledge for software companies, for tech startups, right? I mean, if you have a problem, you're trying to build software, you're trying to do something, you got to reach out to Marc. Right? So let's talk about this Best Business Minds Zoom podcast you've created, right? You've created this Zoom, so tell the audience about this. It's pretty exciting. It runs weekly, right?
Oh, yeah,
you have
twice a week.
I saw people writing books. I mean, like, not only is he a wealth of knowledge, everyone, but his network, right? It's a lot of times about his network. So tell us about that. Really exciting.
So I decided to start this when the pandemic hit and we were all stuck inside, like within a week.
Right.
And entrepreneurs that we're talking to saying, what am I going to do? I've got all this time on my hands. So I thought, well, what if I started an educational show? And I read a national column for American City Business Journals, and I get all these books to review. And what if I just contacted authors? So
awesome.
I had a friend of mine from Harvard who used to teach at Wharton, and I asked her if in fact she would like to be on the show. And she said, when do you want to do it? I said, tomorrow. And she goes, that's not even 24 hours. You think anybody will tune in? Yeah. So I said, I'm just going to send an email out and see who responds to it.
He's got a list, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
So over 250 people signed up to hear. Her name is Dr. Laura Hung, and she wrote a book on adversity called The Edge.
Yeah.
And it was huge success. And then people were saying, are you going to do this more? So I said, okay. So I went and scrambled for some other authors. And in that time period, in the past 3 months, I got John Chambers, the former chairman CEO of Cisco Systems, who has a book called Connect the Dots.
Nice.
And I got Tim Draper, the world's, I guess he's one of the greatest venture capitalists in history.
I saw that. It's amazing.
Yeah. And we average like 150 to 250 people. So they go on the bestbusinessminds.com. And they can see all these past interviews. They're all video interviews.
Yeah.
And it's worked out great. And now I'm getting agents sending me books for their clients, and publishing houses sending me books. And I'm getting great people to come on these shows. Like, you know, TED Talk stars, columnists for Forbes. I have a columnist from the Wall Street Journal who wrote a book on leadership, and he's coming on in July.
I love that. I love that business model, Marc, because again, I'm doing this show, Tech Talks. I bring on founders. I bring in people like yourself, book authors, right?
Yeah.
Why not?
I don't think anybody's even doing it.
Well, because the reality is, like, John Chambers, for everybody out there, is massive. Tim Draper, massive. But kind of a little nichey, right? So probably doesn't have this Joe Rogan-like following, right? So they need a little help.
Yeah.
They need a little help, right, to get the publicity out there. But really, really cool. I would love to learn more about that
But you know what
podcast, or even
I thought what
help
the
with
interesting part about this was, here was an opportunity to do something new.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I have a chance to educate the people that I'm working with. I have a chance to raise my own visibility, make new contacts that it could open doors, and maybe I could even monetize this down the road by private labeling it for large corporations.
You absolutely can. I mean, like if you see what, like, again, if you aren't watching Joe Rogan's show and see what he's done, it's out of this world. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this show, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a win for my audience, it's a win for you,
Yeah.
and it's a win for me because I get to know you better, right? So it's,
Yeah.
and then all you have to do, I think, is get the videos and put them somewhere, and eventually when you get to a good, you know, I've got like 15, 20 videos, you start to, hey,
Yeah.
come on in and look at these things. It could be something where it's more like free, where people get to know, or you know, could you charge a couple bucks a month? Who knows?
I think that I thought about charging, but I think the free part and having the largest number of people come helps me get the speakers to come on. And those speakers are invaluable because I had the founders of Barefoot Winery, and they wrote a best-selling book, and they were awesome. We had them yesterday. And this guy gave me an idea that is going to be a spin-off from a current business I'm already running. If I had not heard him say that, I would never know.
Well, Kevin, so Kevin Hart, right? I saw him speak twice on the Joe Rogan show. The guy is like a sponge. Even though he's super wealthy, he meets with people like simply to learn. Like he started meeting with Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and he was talking to his buddies like, I'm gonna like shoot it with Jeff Bezos. They're like, Kevin, don't shoot it with Jeff Bezos. He's like, why not? You know, why not? I'm Kevin Hart, he's who is. So you learn from people.
You know, you should read Kevin Hart's biography. It's amazing.
North Philly.
Yeah, I mean, North Philly used to work at Modell's on Chestnut Street, but he talks you through what it's like to be a comedian and what it takes to be a comedian. That is a hard job. And this guy was a serious student of learning how to be a comedian. And like you said, he's an amazingly successful and a good guy. He bought over $1 million in computers for students.
Yeah, he gives a lot back. He's actually going in. I know him very well. I've been following him. He's going in, which is really good for this time. He's going in, literally going into the Black communities and with Chase, but he's going to be the one saying the message. And he's saying to his audience, he's saying, you can't bring in somebody from Chase or Morgan Stanley to talk to the urban areas, right? I have to go in. And I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And you know, obviously it rings true with what all the things happening right now about our markets. But again, let's talk. The other thing I want to learn more about is this family business expertise that you have, right? So Marc meets with family businesses. He's been telling me from overseas, in the United States, right? He helps them. Right? It's awesome. So tell the audience about that, Marc.
So I came from family business. My grandfather, I worked with my grandfather, my father, my wife, my ex-wife. I worked with both of my daughters. I've worked with every facet of family you could possibly think of. And I think when you work with family businesses, the one thing that the parents want when they're turning over the business is they want to have a relationship with their kids and their grandchildren. So when I get in, the most important job that I have is not just preparing them to take over the business, but how to handle differences. So that way they can still have Thanksgiving dinner, they can still have Christmas and Hanukkah and Passover and go to weddings and so forth, because what happens in family businesses is that it can go one of two ways. Either it can go well and they work together for the common good, or it can go the other way where they hate each other and nobody's invited to anything. And so I tell the parents when I come in that you have to tell the kids if they cannot get along and they cannot work constructively to solve problems together, you will just sell the business and you'll give them part of the proceeds. End of the business. And I had a family business where the son said, "My father will never sell it." And he goes, "Mark's right. If you can't get along with your sister, I'm selling the business."
Yeah.
And that's it, because again, the most important thing is the family itself. And so I also remind the kids when they're transitioning, you not only have an obligation to your family, but you have an obligation to all the families who are working your business, who are trusting you, who are paying their mortgages and college education and all the other things out of that. And then you've got your vendors and your customers, again, all trusting you.
I have a great idea for you, Mark. I mean, I remember, you're making me remember now, probably 3 years ago, I meet with software companies, early stage.
Yeah.
This guy was building a software platform for family businesses.
Yes.
And obviously you have all the family users. He was explaining to me one of the challenges was all the users. You got all the family users, and then you have all these people, vendors, the financial service advisor, the real estate guy, this. How do you get them all involved in the platform? So, I'm telling you, Mark, if you want to figure out how to monetize something with all your family business experience, build software to automate it, right? To automate it, right?
To bring them together. I have to say, there's a family I'm talking to now, and I said to the parents, I said, if something happens to the husband, he's the CEO of the company, the kids have no idea why the lawyers were hired, why the financial planners were hired, why the accountants were hired, why this bank loan was put in place. We need to teach them everything they need to know to ask the right questions, to know why, who is doing what within the business, and why they were selected to do that in the business. And we need those folks to go and meet the kids and educate the kids. And if they're not willing to do that, then we got to find new people.
Yeah, think about it, everybody. If you're a wealthy family, I mean you're worth $50 million, or you're worth. I mean, you're like a $50 million business, right? There's all sorts of players. There's companies. There's people. And you got to manage it. So there's a software idea, Mark. There's a software idea there.
Well, even with a $3 million, and you'll be ready to write that for me.
No, I'm saying if you want to do it, it's really you. But I mean, I'm thinking to myself, with all your expertise, it would be a no-brainer. And then you already have the network to use it. You already have the people to buy.
I'll have to give that some thought. But if you're running a $3 million business or a $10 million business, it could be a very profitable business.
Yeah.
And the other thing that families have is, okay, the kids are involved in the business, but what about, I have now son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws. I have a business where the daughter-in-law really should be the CEO at some point. And the parents are worried, well, what if they get divorced? Then what happens to the business?
Right.
And so you're telling them, well, why don't we set up a trust and it goes to the grandchildren, and so it skips a generation.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff that has to be thought about here, but at the end of the day, you want to create a mechanism for people to be able to handle disputes. Because I have a family business where the kids are in their early 20s, and the kids love each other, but I said, who they are in their 20s will not be who they are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah, I mean,
and especially they add spouses and they add kids in.
Yeah.
You need a process for handling disputes.
Yeah, it's a process. The guy was telling me the biggest challenge was all the users that are involved.
Yeah.
He's like, there's so many players I need to build for all these. How do I get these people involved? Right? So we have to wrap up, but Mark, tell everybody, where do they find Best Business Minds? Where do they find you? How do they contact you?
So first of all, if you type my name into the search bar, it's pretty easy. I'll come up with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But the bestbusinessminds.com, the stressfreefamilybusiness.com. Of course, it's like an oxymoron, right? Like there's no way that there can't be stress in a family business.
Right.
Kramer Communications. And angelventurefair.com.
Yeah.
And for all of these things, we provide a lot of education. We connect a lot of people. We make sure that the entrepreneurs and the family businesses that talk to us, they come out more educated, more knowledgeable, and know the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
That's really important in knowing the right questions. And as I mentioned to you, I've written 6 books, and I'm working on the 7th called Stress Free Family Business, where I'm interviewing family businesses. One of the family businesses, I've interviewed Asher Candy and Hers Foods, and interesting. But I got the guy from Wiffle Ball coming on.
Nice.
So those of us who grew up playing
love
Wiffle Ball, This is like a dream come true interview for me.
Yeah. So everybody, again, reach out to Marc, right? If you have an idea, if you're an entrepreneur, a software company, a tech startup, early stage, you have a family business, check out his show, right? And again, my name is Michael Bertoni. You could find me very easily on LinkedIn, just Michael C. Bertoni. I'm big on LinkedIn. I have over 16,000 first connections, or you could find me at phillytech.co. So come on back to Tech Talks every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. See you next week. Thanks.